For the first time since she began the secret test, Amara felt peace. The doubts that had troubled her heart were slowly disappearing. She had expected to find arrogance. She had expected to find someone who treated ordinary people differently. But what she had seen so far was a man who greeted workers, showed concern for the elderly gardener, and carried himself with humility even when nobody from the family was present. That night, she sat on the small bed inside the staff quarters, looking at the simple clothes she had been wearing for days. A small smile appeared on her face. Maybe, Daddy, she whispered. Maybe I finally found someone you would have approved of. She picked up her phone and looked at an old picture of her father. For the first time in a long while, she felt hopeful. But hope can sometimes make people lower their guard. And when people lower their guard, that is often when reality revealed itself. The next morning, Chinedu received a phone call while standing in the garden. Amara was nearby, arranging flowers. She had no intention of listening. She was simply doing her work. But then she heard a familiar voice. It was Victor, his friend. Chinedu, my brother, how far? I'm fine, oh, Chinedu replied. How is the mansion? Amara paused. The mansion? She continued arranging the flowers quietly. Chinedu laughed and said, It's a beautiful place. Victor laughed loudly through the phone and said, I told you, you entered another level. Chinedu did not respond immediately. Then Victor continued and said, Have you spoken with Amara about the family assets? A silence followed. Amara's hand stopped moving. She looked down at the flowers. For a few seconds, she thought she had heard wrongly. Then Chinedu answered and said, Not yet. Why? Because I don't want to appear interested in money, okay? Victor laughed and said, My friend, appearing interested and being interested are two different things, okay? Chinedu was silent. Victor continued and said, Look here, nobody is saying you should behave badly, but you need to understand what you are stepping into, okay? The Okonkwo family fortune is enormous. That marriage can change your entire future. Amara's heart began beating faster. She waited for Chinedu to disagree. She waited for him to say, I don't care about that. But instead, she heard him sigh and then said, Of course I know. The flowers in Amara's hand suddenly felt heavy. Later that evening, she sat alone. The conversation kept replaying in her mind. Maybe she had misunderstood. Maybe Chinedu was simply acknowledging reality. After all, money was part of every marriage discussion. She tried to convince herself, but something inside her felt unsettled. The next morning, she decided to observe more carefully, not with suspicion, with wisdom. That afternoon, a delivery man arrived at the estate carrying a package. He was a young man wearing a faded uniform. Good afternoon, he greeted the security guard. I have a delivery for Mr. Chinedu. The guard directed him inside. A few minutes later, Chinedu came downstairs. The delivery man handed him a document to sign. Please sign here, sir. Chinedu collected the pen. He signed. Then the young man accidentally dropped the envelope. I am sorry, sir. He quickly bent down to pick it up, but before he could, Chinedu stepped back. Be careful. The delivery man apologized again. Yes, sir. Amara watched quietly. Nothing terrible had happened, but she noticed something. Chinedu's tone with wealthy visitors was warm and relaxed. With ordinary workers, it was different. Not openly cruel, just distant, almost as if they belonged to another world. That evening, Amara went to Mama Grace. The older woman was folding clothes in the laundry room. Mama Grace, the woman looked up. Yes, my daughter, can I ask you something? Of course. Have you noticed anything about Chinedu since he arrived? Mama Grace became quiet. What do you mean? I mean, does he treat everyone the same? Mama Grace continued folding the clothes. Then she smiled slightly and said, You have started seeing. Amara looked at her. Seeing what? The little things. What little things? Mama Grace placed the folded clothes aside and then said, My daughter, a person does not reveal their hearts only through big actions. Sometimes it is in the small things, the way they speak to someone serving them, the way they react when nobody important is watching, the way they treat people who cannot benefit them. Amara lowered her eyes and said, Do you think he's pretending? Mama Grace sighed and answered and said, I don't know, and I don't want to accuse a man without proof. But remember why you started this? Amara nodded slowly and said, To discover the truth. Exactly, Mama Grace said.